Peter, we're joined now by James Bezan, and he is the MP for the Manitoba riding of Selkirk, Interlake, Eastman. He's also the Conservative Party's defence critic. James Bezan, let's look at this throne speech. There was a reference in this throne speech to a leaner, more efficient military, and they were talking about procurement and giving the military its equipment. How do you react to that?
Well, I always say leaner is a code word for cuts. So I'm wanting to know is where are we cutting? What capabilities are we going to be giving up? Are we going to be downsizing the size of our forces? Is there going to be less troops, which currently stand at over 87,000? We have brave men and women in uniform who stand on the wall to protect us day in and day out, and they need to know what's going to be taken away.
What about when people hear leaner and more efficient, and they also look at the headlines from last week, which were revealing that, for example, the shipbuilding program, the major contract, has ballooned from $14 billion to $30 billion. Under your government, it was totally some would say misestimated and mishandled. Do they not have a good argument when they say the military procurement and construction can be leaner and more efficient?
The numbers that we had were the numbers that were provided by the department itself. So department officials, and as Vice Admiral Norman said yesterday, is that they got it wrong. So and things do escalate in time. We know that there's inflationary pressures that are upon any procurement that we undertake. But we have to remember that the national shipbuilding strategy was embraced by all political parties and by all partners and stakeholders across this country. We need to have a blue water fleet. We have to be able to project our capabilities around the world, and that means that we have to have those surface combatants. So it comes down to budget. It comes down to what this new government's going to do to make it happen. And again, we need to have strong signals coming from the Trudeau government as to where these investments are going to be made. And we expect that our Royal Canadian Navy and the Canadian Armed Forces from top to bottom have the tools that they need when we ask them to deploy and defend our sovereignty.
You've been parliamentary secretary on this matter for quite a few years. You are now the critic in opposition, but you have experience of all of these matters. Would you have any advice to the Liberals when it comes to creating this leaner, more efficient military? I mean, obviously there are mistakes made or lessons learned.
I would already say that the process that our government went through, the Conservative government went through in reducing the deficit, that we, through our action plan, had cut already enough of the fat from the military. There isn't anything there left to make it more efficient other than to downsize. And if you talk to anybody within the Canadian Armed Forces, and they will tell you the exact same thing, is that we are already running a lean operation without giving up our overall troop size and without giving up any capabilities in the Air Force, the Navy, or the Army, and been able to actually increase the new investments that were there for our Army in particular, but we got new C-17 Globemaster planes, we got new C-130J Hercules aircraft, new Chinook helicopters, and now the new maritime helicopter and the National Shipbuilding Program, never mind all new trucks and tanks and upgrades to the labs that we were able to accomplish in our 10 years. So now it comes down to what is the Trudeau government going to do. I'm very concerned. If you read the throne speech, it's only 1,700 words. Not one of those words was ISIS. They do not recognize that ISIS declared war on Canada and on our allies when the rest of the world, when you look after Paris, you look at what President Hollande has done, what British Prime Minister Cameron has done, they have stepped up to take on the fight against ISIS. And what we're hearing from this Liberal government, from Mr. Trudeau, is that we're going to step back. That does not honor our proud military history, and that does not recognize the true capabilities that we have in the Canadian Armed Forces.
So for you, that's a significant omission from this throne speech?
It's a terrible omission. I think it says a lot about this government. It says a lot about their unwillingness to actually go out there and defend Canada and to stop this humanitarian crisis that ISIS is creating. And as Prime Minister Cameron said in his speech to Parliament this week, he says that Britain will not outsource their sovereignty and their defense and protection of British citizens. Why will Canada do that?
Okay, well, on that, it's going to be an interesting next few months. I want to thank you very much for taking the time with us.
Hey, anytime, Martin.